What up? How's it going?
Funk.
How's it going?
Good. Great.
Good.
Everything's
Uh,
fabulous.
yeah, thanks for doing this.
I'm
You
happy
are
to. I love
you're
this idea. I love
yeah,
this. Love this idea. It's
it's fun,
awesome.
right? It's a fun thing, and it's not like I don't have any lofty aspirations with this. It's just just a thing of getting with people that I want to talk to, family, friends. You're like number 4 on my hit list,
Woo.
and I got a bunch of ideas, but I want to talk to people that either people I grew up with, friends, family, find out about them, and I also want to just talk to interesting people. So, like when Carla and I went to on our anniversary last year, we went to Papa Brothers at Steakhouse, and we were talking to the sommelier there, and I'm like, I don't know anything about wine, so I'd be like, that'd be something I could like hit them up and be like, hey, do you
Totally.
want to be on a podcast and talk about wine and teach me about wine?
Totally. It's
So
awesome.
so yeah,
But
anything
I
that
love the inspiration for this too. I just think it's, you know,
yeah. I
I
yeah.
think we are so locked in our digital lives, to sound stereotypical, but it's like we don't connect the way we used to because we don't interact humanly the way we used to, and
Hmm.
we don't tell stories the way we used to. And then as you get older and you have nuclear family dynamics, you don't have the opportunity to do what we're going to do on this because we just don't hang out the way we
Yeah.
used to. So
Yeah.
you don't, it's a fabulous, and the inspo with Call Mama, it's so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, I
Absolutely love
know.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, so for anybody watching, yeah, because my grandmother passed away on my 40th birthday. And your grandmother, you're my sister, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know.
Hello, the sister.
Hello. Uh, and and yeah, I think hitting 40, it was kind of weird because like hitting 40 was a milestone in itself. The fact that I hit 40 on the day of her passing. And for me, I don't know why, but death has always been something that's like super preoccupied me. It's like consumed a
Of
lot of my
course, of
thoughts. I think a lot of people
course.
like that are like that.
Well, I think Gen Xers in general, because that's our generation.
Yeah, you
We
think
were
so?
raised with thoughts of death.
What
Don't
was
go
the
trick or treating. There could be a blade in your apple.
well, I don't know. It's probably
Don't
worse.
be outside after dark. There could be a white van that could come kill you. I mean, like that. That's
I
part
don't
of our
know.
upbringing.
It might be worse now though with parents. I think parents are more protective now than they were before when they used to let their kids go running around and do something. Or maybe it's
Yeah.
because of the media or
Yes,
I don't
and
know,
yes.
you know,
Access. There's more
ac
access.
more access.
Yeah.
Or but yeah, oh, by the way, I think are you a Gen Xer? Because I think I'm a
Yeah.
millennial. I'm a millennial.
No, not because you have older siblings that are Gen Xers. You get to
No,
qualify.
it's based on
If
when
if
you're
a
born.
if an older Gen X sibling beat up a younger on the fringe millennial, you get to be you're a Gen Xer by osmosis, by affiliation.
Millennials were born between 1981 and 1994. I made it.
Yeah, no, you're definitely a Gen Xer.
I'm
You
just
are a fringe. You are
I'm going
fringe. When
by
did you get when did you get your cell phone?
my cell phone. Okay, is that the indicator? I got my cell phone. Well, I got mine late though. I got mine in I had a beeper in college, dude. So I guess I am
Exactly. Exactly.
so I'm a boomer.
And you're a boomer. Uh See, I bypassed the entire beeper thing, so that's how old I am. Like it wasn't even a thing yet. Um no, I'm joking about the cell phone. You're right. The date technically, but from a marketing perspective, you're right. The cutoff is 81 and above, but
But yeah, I think I
you,
experienced the Gen X kind of
of
generation
course,
mentality, all that stuff.
because of Jenny and me,
Yeah,
you did
yeah, yeah.
100%, and the exposure. So yeah.
Yeah. So basically, turning 40 and that happening, and then with our grandmother dying on my birthday, and it just and the fact that I had a couple conversations with her in the past when we visited her like on our honeymoon, on me and Carla's honeymoon. We visited her, and I asked her a bunch of questions about like the family and where we came from in north of France, and I think her grandfather was a tanner. Um, it was her grandfather who was a tanner coming from Alsace, and I learned a decent amount, but a lot of it I forgot, and I'm like, I should
If
be
you
having these
don't
conversations all
record
the
the,
yeah,
you should.
exactly. And even if we don't go through every aspect of your life right today, it's like, you know, I'm going to be seeing, I think this is an ongoing thing. So we could talk, in a few months time and re-record, the idea is we're just
Exactly.
learning about each other and then we're recording it, so
I love it. I love it.
So
And for posterity, right? For our
yeah,
kids later,
yeah, true. Yeah.
especially since we both have daughters. You also have a son, but at some point they're going to torture us, and then they can look at this and maybe understand us better.
Yeah, exactly. And think, oh, they're pretty cool. Or
Yeah.
have something to hold against us if we admit too
or
much.
or depending on where this conversation
Or
goes,
blackmail.
or
Uh
blackmail. Exactly.
so so yeah, it got me thinking, like you came back, you went to Georgia a couple weeks ago on vacation, and then I went
Hmm.
to Colorado, and I
Hmm.
think we both had an awesome time to unwind and unplug and just like
Oh yeah.
live and be present. And I think you and I have been kind of on this, I don't know, rediscovery of self in the last year of, not for me, me more recently, and
Yeah.
you in the last year or two, but
Year and a half for me.
year and a
Yeah,
half.
18, I'd say
Yeah.
18 months. Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think, for people, this happens when um, either over time things happen that like make you have a breaking point, and you like something acute can happen. I think this can happen for
Hmm.
anybody, like say, you get in a debilitating car wreck, or something
Hmm.
happens in your life that's,
Hmm.
so for me, I think it was more like slowly, combinations of things, health issues, I think. And then for you, was health issues, but also, just time creeping up on you and be like, damn, I'm 40, so it's like this
Hmm.
subconscious thing.
Hmm.
And I think that like it got me thinking about, you know, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to be happy, right? That's like the goal, is like, what can I do to be happy as possible? And then what is happiness, right? It's like for everybody, it's different, right?
I just wrote a blog about this
Oh,
actually.
you did?
I'm about to publish it.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. On Kyetu?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Nice.
I have come to, but this is only over the course of the last year, have come to realize that we've been fed, and it's in our Declaration of Independence, that we are to pursue happiness.
Yeah.
And when you think about the words and the etymology of the language, like language is, we speak very flippantly in our culture today, but there was a time where you chose your words, that was what was considered we spoke more formally. And pursuit, when you pursue something, like when you think about it, it means you're chasing after it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to spend my whole life pursuing happiness.
I know,
I
right?
want to be running after it.
Well, I think
And
it's
I've reframed the way I think about it. I want to be in happiness. I want to be in this, like, really, what is happiness? And everyone's got a different definition. And for me, um it's in it's in calm, it's in poise, it's in minimizing the ups and downs. And it's not saying that they don't exist. It's in when they come up, not allowing them to go too high and not allowing them to go too low, right? So
mm,
being in control, like self mastery. And what I've come to believe is the pursuit is not of happiness, but of integrity. And if you pursue integrity, meaning you pursue um, self discipline and mastery, and to use layman's language, if you just try to be your best self every day, like
mm,
really, if
mm-hmm.
you every morning wake up and say, how can I be my best self? And everyone, it's different for everyone, right? Like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to live to the highest standard that I decided? And everyone has a different definition.
Yeah.
Then you're happy. Then you're happy. It sounds very basic and very simple,
Yeah.
but you first have to define, well, what is my standard? And a lot of us don't know. A
Yeah.
lot of us don't know.
Well, and a lot of people don't don't take the time to question that in the first place, or don't feel like they have the time because they are working two jobs, or whatever, or it's just nonstop, or which I think, regardless of how many, how busy you are, it's even more so of a necessity to step back and keep these things in mind, because they ground you. It grounds you, right?
100%. Yep,
I
it
think I
does.
I think the hardest part, I think for me, the true definition of happiness, again, can differ for everybody, but the general one is presence, right? Being present.
Yeah.
And for me, that's something I've always struggled with, is always being in my head a lot and thinking about, projecting about things that I have to do. And I think most people are like that.
A
You
lot.
know,
I mean, but that's most of us, most, and I say most, I'm going to speak to Americans, right? Because that's what we have access to from an information perspective. We're an anxious population, right? For lots of good reasons,
Yeah.
but not good reasons, but for understandable reasons.
Well,
And
right. Or for ideas of what we define as success or what it takes to live in a modern world, you know? So I think when we went on vacation, you know, to our respective places, I think being out in nature
oh my
and
God.
understanding like what priorities are, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, obviously we all want to live comfortably and you know, we're lucky as hell to be living in a country where we can afford to live how we live or have the opportunity to live how we want to live.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, there's a lot of unnecessary things that we could do without to simplify life and which would allow you to be more present. I think like,
Yeah.
you know, the minutia of everyday life and like, you know, the repetition and the scheduling and, you know, things that we don't necessarily have to do, but we do can create more stress than good. And I think it takes you out of the present moment, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, if you're just in nature and you're sitting on the dock of the bay, you know, and you're just watching, you know, just being present. And then obviously, you know, back, you know, historically, we would have to maybe not be in a much more stressed situation if we were hunting or looking for food, you know what I mean? But I mean,
But then you would pause.
at the end of
But
the
then
day,
you
and
would
then it would
pause.
pause exactly. And now, so
Hmm.
but in this modern world, it's like you've got your phone, you've got things to do, and so it you can find an excuse for that to never stop,
Yeah.
and then always and then never be in the present moment. So for me, happiness means being present and just observing what's going on around you. You know, just
Yeah.
being
I think you said something really important, which is finding an excuse. And I think, um, I believe in, and it's linked to what I said earlier about integrity. I believe in extreme accountability, meaning you're not a victim. I
we
don't want that word victim be taken sideways, where if someone is acted upon horrifically and they are victimized, I'm not talking about
right.
that,
No,
right?
me
I'm
and
talking about, you
Richard and
guys
I were
talked about
we
this.
literally talked about this. He
Yeah.
said, you know, he said the most successful people out there, people who are successful, who do they come to when something bad happens? Who do they blame? Themselves, right? Not other people,
That's
not
it.
oh woe is me. He literally used those terms, that woe is me mentality.
Yeah.
Go ahead, keep going.
No, but it's true. But it's like there's always an excuse, right? And in the sense that, um, there's a common phrase that was used a lot during, and a lot of memes around COVID, around control what you can control.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what does that mean? What does that really mean? And it's like, I think about it in terms of boundaries and managing externalities, meaning that, and I created a little moniker. I can't help it. I'm a marketer. I create little monikers and memes to help myself. And sometimes I'm like, one day I'm going to tattoo these things on my body. And then, uh, as Bill once said to me, he heard this from one of his friends. You don't put a bumper sticker on a Ferrari. So I'll never never get a tattoo. But it's
I like that.
um, I have a couple that I like to use. The first one is present, patient, poised. So whenever I do yoga or I set an intention, I go back to that, and I've created that over time, because it's like, for me, the first level is being present. If you're not here, and I'm teaching the kids here now, wow, it's a really cute little thing that they say. I don't need that, but when I say, okay, be present, be patient. Patient means not reacting. It means responding. It means pausing,
Mm-hmm.
listening, and then the last one is poise, meaning being in control.
Mm-hmm.
Choose your reaction. You are completely in control. And so, that's the first one. And what you made me think about was another one that I created, which is called, it's the C's, which is, in marketing, there's the three C's, the P's and the C's, but it's around consumption and creating and connecting. And we are in a we live in a world now where we consume everything's been tipped upside down. And for me, consuming is not just food. Consume, what does consume mean? It's
Filling up.
exactly. And so when stuff's coming from the outside, externalities are happening, right? Your phone, TV, news, people who need you. I need, I need, I need, I need, I need. And it's pushing, it's pushing, it's pushing. You don't take the time to create first. And I believe it, I think of it as a triangle. The base is creation. And it's actually, I thought about how to, it's more like concentric circles. So it's like it's creation, consumption next, and then connection. Because if you can't connect, you can't be genuine, you can't be yourself, you're always in an erratic state of someone else pushing their needs on you. When I say they and their needs, again, it can be media, it can be TV, it could be your endless scrolling, whatever it is, you can name it, right? It could be
Yeah.
the phone calls, it could be the emails, it could be what your boss wants, it could be your child tugging at you. But if you don't take time to be present, back to the vacations where you're out in nature, I'm talking 10 minutes,
Yeah.
to create. And what is creating? What is creating? It is something you do on your own. It's not something you do in a team with a team. It's not something you taught. It is meditation. It is contemplation. It is, and there's also room for creative efforts, like if you paint or you do photography or whatever. But I'm talking being in creation, being in nature, if you need time to do that, because otherwise you are like it becomes a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And it's
Would you
so easy to just say, well, I can't. I'm overwhelmed, like I'm oversaturated, and I'm blaming this, I'm blaming that. It's like, no, you have full agency. You get to choose. And that goes back to the other thing I said a second ago, is boundaries, right? Which I'm terrible at. Terrible at. I mean, terrible. I give myself a 0.5 out of 10. It's like my biggest thing I need to work on.
your Achilles
I used to
heel?
be a -1 out of 10, so I'm making small progress. But
Yeah.
but at least being aware of being
Yeah.
aware of that.
I think a synonym for that would be reflection, right? Reflecting on yourself and stepping outside to view who you are and view, what's the word?
Yes.
The mindfulness is the
Mhm.
term there, where your mindfulness,
Absolutely.
being mindful, the definition of that is looking at yourself as if you were looking at yourself from another person's shoes,
Correct.
and witnessing your emotions or whatever it is, observing them versus just feeling them, right? The difference is feeling them without observing and say, hey, this is me and I'm feeling these emotions. And then when you can do that, I think you feel a lot more in control.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody has their definition of what your creative thing that you're penning. I think a lot of things can be like kids, you mentioned, are present. Animals are present, much more than humans are, or much more than adults are. And those kids are
Yeah,
animals.
they become humans at around 7 or 8 years
Yeah,
old. Until
those
then,
damn
they're
animals.
small pets.
I feel like animals sometimes, but I think a lot of that has to do with us also remembering. I saw this news article or documentary on remembering to play, you know, playing as adults, not
I
forgetting
also
to
wrote a
be it.
blog about that. I
Oh
called it
yeah,
scheduled spontaneity.
yeah, perfect. See,
Because you forget to play.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to, and again, I write about stuff that I'm terrible at, right? It's like I'm writing my own
Advice.
my own advice that I
I
can
know.
then go back and be like, okay,
Yeah,
go do this. But yeah, you have to. And it's not about taking a break and going to sit on the beach and relax, and like that's something else. I mean, scheduled play, like playing the piano or painting, and it's, you know what I mean, like, or
or just being
cooking
silly,
or whatever
playing
it
with
is, or
kids,
being
playing
silly.
playing
Absolutely.
Uno, like we play, just playing. Taught Ellie how to play
Board
Uno
games.
and games, board games. Stuff that's just
Exactly.
that. But when you do it, truly commit to doing it and not having all these things in the back of your mind of things that you've got to do. And I'm bad about that. So I've got to, when I do it, I realize that I'm doing, okay, I'm present, I'm doing this movement and this action, this activity, and I feel so much better afterwards. You feel
Mm-hmm.
invigorated. And
Mm-hmm.
so I
Well,
think
because you're
that,
in flow, right? You're because again, you're in it, that's what's called being in flow. And I think it's used a lot, but where does
Hmm.
that come from? It's like, I can speak this from experience living on the ocean. It's like when you go into the wake and it's very rough, if you even try to fight it, you're going to get pulled under. The
Yeah.
way you can swim out in big, rough waves, it's by you move with the waves, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And that's why it's called you flow with, you go with it and
Go
you
with the
don't
flow.
fight it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you go with it, right? And going with it in these activities, it's like you're not thinking of other things. Your phone's turned off. You're not talking to someone else. And then all of a sudden, 45 minutes has gone by. That's
Hmm.
insane. No
Yeah.
way. I just started this.
Yeah. No, totally. And going back to going back to the playing thing or different ways to be present, I think you can find it in all facets. So you can find it in work. You can find it in all facets. And I think I guess the point I'm trying to make is that happiness is a balance, right? Like happiness is a balance of core tenets that you define in your life. So
Mhm.
like
Which would
for
be, I would call value, which I would call values.
mm,
Like, what is your value system? If I am coming full circle to where we started with, come almost passing and you turning 40, and everyone has a moment, like you said, whether you have a rock bottom moment or you have a milestone moment, there's a moment, right? Where you say, when I look back and I'm 100 or 80 or whatever it is, will I have done all the things that I wanted to do? Will I like living life with mortality in mind, which
yeah,
sounds morbid, but
yeah.
knowing that there, and that's not saying that you count every minute and you're stressed out. It's like, hurry up.
Hmm.
But it's like you have to think about it through from that perspective. You don't have to. It really helps to think about it from that perspective, because
Right.
then you can prioritize how you want to spend your energy and who you
Hmm.
want to spend your energy with.
Yeah.
So
So for you, what what kind of puts you down this path? Like I know you'd
like,
had
what's my story? Like, how did I get to this,
well,
all
I
this
mean,
crazy
I
woo
want
stuff?
yeah, I mean, I want to talk about because here's how I kind of want to outline it. So for me, keys to happiness involve, like I said, balance. And for me, I think my four key tenets, and these are things that you could probably find in like a psychologist's office on a board. And I think I saw these maybe a bunch of times in college. You just don't pay mind to it when you're a kid. You're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Whatever.
Um,
Yeah.
but are and there are subcategories to each, but the first one is health, and there's lots of values like health
Hmm.
via like mental
Yes.
health, sleep, stress management, diet, that aspect of
Yes.
health. Then there's a
Wellness.
social, there's relationships, and
Hmm.
not relationships with your kids, relationships with your wife, spouse, or loved ones, relationship with your friends, right? And then the third one would be like personal accomplishments, your career. What have you accomplished? What do you find fulfillment? What is fulfilling you?
Hmm.
What skills are you learning? What what brings you the most happiness? Right. So there's three there, and then the fourth one um, is your idea of God, whatever that is. And I think
Spirituality.
yeah, spirituality,
Hmm.
there's that something bigger than you that you maybe can't understand. And there may be others. And the spiritual, the God thing I throw in there, not personally, I don't know, like it's something that I will probably get to address more. But I think the first three, the health, the relationships, and the personal accomplishments are the three that I feel are the most pressing for me, at least, to try to get to balance in my life, to bring some sort of like to some sort
I
of
know what you're
like
trying to say.
equilibrium.
I know what you're trying to say. Like, so for the most basic, from a psychology perspective, there's Maslow's pyramid, right? Which is why everyone got so screwed up during COVID, because at the base you have to be, your reptilian brain needs to feel safe, right? So, do I have shelter? Do I have food? Um, am I going to die imminently? Right?
Mm,
And when that base gets rocked, you can't even go to the next level, which is uh, love, comfort, there's a whole level. So there's so much literature on this pier. I mean, so much, right? And I've read a lot of it in the last couple of years, because was asking myself the same questions. What do I want to prioritize? And depending on who's writing, depending if you have, if it's coming from a religious angle or from a consultant's angle or whatever, you're going to you're going to prioritize spirituality first. If you're coming from a psychological perspective, you're going to prioritize, the way Man's law organizes it. But at the end of the day, I do believe I have gotten to the spiritual end and I've then back solved. And I do believe in this concept that your body is a temple, and that your body houses your soul. And if you don't have, and I truly genuinely believe, it took me a long time to get here, because I was always, for years, just take a pill. And it was only when I had my ear thing, when I realized that every answer ended with an injection of some sort of steroid and pain relieving pills, that I'm like, wait a minute, this can't be the way that this is meant to be. And so I went the alternative and holistic route, the mind body connection.
Can you
But I
before I want you to finish your thought, but I also want to
Yeah.
I want you to elaborate on that background,
Oh, what happened
your
with my ear?
story,
Sure.
yeah, what
Sure.
that basically led you to where you are with this on this path.
Sure, absolutely. But yeah, I will absolutely. And let me first support you in this space of health, because what I have found is that if you don't have a healthy body, and it goes back and forth, but I think about what I call keystone habits, meaning if you exercise regularly, you're gonna eat better. Why? Because you know how hard you worked. And so you don't want to screw it up. That doesn't mean that you're not going to have, no one's perfect. That doesn't mean it's not going to ebb and flow and whatever, but it's been proven. You will eat more healthfully if you exercise, right? If you sleep 7 to 9 hours, and everybody's different, but ideally 7.5 to 8 hours a night, right? You're going to be calmer. And if you're calmer, you're going to make better choices. You're not going to be stressed, which means you're not going to use food as comfort. And then if once you've used food as comfort, then you're less likely to exercise. It all goes together. And you could say, okay, well, let me start with my mind. But what is easier to control? What can you do? You can get your butt out of your chair and you can go for a walk. You can go for a run. You can ride your bike. That is controllable, right?
Yeah.
So if you can control your body's physicality, and I'm not talking about it from a vanity perspective. I'm not talking about reducing cellulite or building muscle, right? Both of those things are great. Fly at it, right? I'm talking about energizing, using your energetic potential to move your body. All these wonderful things come out of it.
Yeah.
It's like the number one thing I would say to anyone, and I figured this out on my own, because you read a million different things and everyone tells you something different. And then you finally find a few people who agree with what I'm saying. And I think you would agree too, based on your life choices, is if you can exercise every day, and I'm not talking about going to the gym for an hour, you can if you want to, but you have to exercise every day, get your heart rate up, move every day. All these amazing things happen.
Yeah, totally.
They
Hmm.
really do.
Yeah.
All these other amazing, it's a huge cascade of wonderful trickle down effects. Um, but yeah, I do agree. I think respecting your body because it houses your soul is the number one thing. I really do.
The
Which
soul.
means, yeah, because it is and how do you honor your body? You give it 8 hours of sleep, you hydrate it, you move it, you exercise it, you feed it healthfully, and you minimize stress inputs.
Hmm.
If you do that, you're going to have a pretty good life.
Yep. Yep. Sleep. I think for me the hardest one is sleep. It's just I've always been a
Oh, me
night
too.
I've always been
I
a
can
night
talk the
owl.
talk, but I went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning the other day. I texted you on your birthday at 1:30 in the morning. Give me a break.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the morning that grandmama passed away.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
Well, so Richard's got an Oura ring, and you know what the Oura ring is. I've been
yeah,
wanting
yeah,
to.
yeah. I've held
I
out on purchasing it, but
I know. I need to get it. I need to get that
Yeah.
damn thing, put it
This is
on.
not an endorsement.
No, it's not. But if you guys want to send me one, go ahead. Um, I want to, yeah, just to track my
Tell
sleep,
me
and then,
why. Tell me why, because I'm intrigued.
well, I just want to, again, for some reason, subconsciously, I don't know, it's always been this way. It's like I found my mind is most active at night, and I have this
Me too.
subconscious thing in the back of my head. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to sleep. I want to do stuff.
Me
In the
too.
back of my head, it's like, what can I
One
do?
more thing.
Yeah, I
One more
find
thing.
things, and the more I observe that, I'm like, that's just stupid. I just get the
It
stuff
is.
done that you've got to get done during the day, and
Yeah.
then worry about
Wake up earlier.
wake up earlier. Yeah, and that's what Richard calls it protected time, but it's basically time where you don't have kids around, you don't have anybody around, you don't have nobody's calling you, no email. So it's time where you can truly do the things for yourself that you want to do, and then that affords you that time for it later. And when I think about what I'm doing when I'm staying up later, it's stupid stuff that's not really
It is.
invigorating me
It
so I'm not
it
like
is.
reading a book or anything like that. It's just like I'm on social media most of the time, or I'm watching TV, and there's some aspects of that is relaxing, but I think there's other things that I can do to help with that. So
Oh yeah.
I've never been much of a reader. I've always tried to be, but like I fall asleep. I think I've read like uh 2 books in the last 2 years. I'm one of those guys. I've read 30 books this year, or 40
Well,
books.
I
No,
mean, if that's
I
that
wish I was.
listen, reading's a habit though.
Well,
I mean, you can
I
be a reader if you choose to, you can be. That's a
I
habit.
I think it's also based on how you learn and how you grasp things. So I've learned
Also
way
true.
more from listening to
Same.
audiobooks,
Hmm.
versus, or podcasts and audiobooks versus
Hmm.
reading it on
Same.
paper. So I think
Same.
everybody,
Madeline will tell you that doesn't count though. I listened to, I think something like 75 audiobooks last year.
it
And
absolutely counts.
she tells, I know, I'm joking. It's
Yeah,
my 10-year-old who like gets credit for reading, because
right.
she's in,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't get my
So
25 cents or whatever.
oh no, not from me, just at
No.
school. They have a reward system for,
Yeah.
goals for reading books. So it's like that doesn't count. You're not reading. Like,
Hmm.
okay, we'll call it audio learning. We're
Yeah,
gonna call
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
it.
Yeah. So I mean that can help you, sleep. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that the rest of your day is going to be worlds better if you sleep. Now, one thing that I have done is incorporate. I quit caffeine.
You
Um,
did?
yep.
When?
It's been over a month now when I started
Oh
carnivore.
wow. Oh
Yep.
wow. Okay.
Um,
And do you miss it?
no, no. And I mean, I had a
Yeah.
cup of
Are you
coffee.
doing the mushroom coffee instead or something?
No, I'm not. I'm right now. I'm just doing like little like beef, eggs, and bacon. That's it.
Oh, so
Uh,
no stimulants at all then?
no, no,
Good for you. I need to get there
no.
next.
But I'm telling
I
you,
cut
I
all
had a
afternoon caffeine a
yeah,
couple years ago. And that was a game changer,
yeah.
but I'm still having 2 to 3 cups every morning before 11.
Honestly, I
Yeah,
don't feel any more awake now when I get up in the morning as I did after taking coffee before,
I
because
know.
you get
It's a drug.
desensitized. It is a drug, right? You get desensitized
Of
to it.
course.
And then like I did have so Carla got a good deal on Nespressos, so she got a bunch of capsules the other last weekend or last week, and last Saturday I was like, oh, I hadn't had one in a while, so I did have one coffee on Saturday, and I took it. I was like, it felt like crack, and I didn't
It
really like it.
probably,
I didn't really like that
yeah,
feeling. So because I
yeah,
was I've been so used to not drinking coffee, and
yeah,
I feel like I've been thinking about starting mushroom coffee, or
yeah,
not even feel like I need it, but like eliminating anything from my body that I don't really need. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I do.
So
I do. I think about that stuff all the time.
yeah.
Again, I think both of us do a lot of similar parallel research. I'm a little bit farther ahead in the journey, so to speak, because of, I'm 7 years older than you. So I've had more life experiences that makes me like a little bit farther along, but we're in the same headspace, in terms of wanting to be our best selves, living our best lives, whatever. And we both know a lot. It's so we can talk the talk. We could talk all this good, but doing it is a whole other story.
Well,
Or doing it consistently over a long period of time. It's very easy to do something for 2 or 3 weeks or for a month, but
yeah.
to genuinely long term make a lifestyle adjustment,
Hmm.
that takes
Well,
incredible conviction and self-control and an environment around you that is supportive.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it
and you
depends on your.
have to really believe, in it because you have to set big boundaries, right? To do it.
I think it depends on your personality though too, because for example, I
Probably.
I have, like I said, sleep is my sleep is, it's not shit, but it's not. I need to I need to maximize my sleep because sleep is probably one of the probably the most important things. Probably more important
Yeah.
than even diet, right? If you have good sleep,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
to a
I
certain
would agree.
extent. And I but I have
No, I would
no.
agree. I would agree.
I have no problem motivating myself to exercise. It's never been an issue since I was in high school. It's and so is diet. You know, eating. If I say I'm sticking to this regimen for food, no problem. I've never been one to feel like, and that doesn't mean I'm like, like for example, I had fruit. You know, it's like, so I'm doing carnivore, but like I'll have a fruit once in a while, like a
And
fruit
you're not
every
going to
other.
punish
And
yourself
I'm not going to
over it.
punish
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
because I know that, like, and I'm exercising, so it's right around, it's timed around that, and so like I'm not worried about that because I'm still saying like 95% of the time I'm eating a carnivore, and it's not, plus it's not something that I plan on doing the rest of my life. I'm just going to do it for another like 30 to 60 days and then do blood work to see.
Yeah.
For me, this way of eating is simple because I don't have to think about what I'm going to eat. It's convenient more than anything as well, and I feel great on it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like since I've started carnivore, I need less sleep anyways. I think depending on your personality, one of those
Well,
factors, whether it's
aren't you permanently in ketosis?
pretty much, yeah, exactly. I mean,
So
you pretty much are. I mean, you will, like, in the morning, you'll have a little glycogen spike with cortisol as well. You know, that's everybody. Even when you don't have it, you know, you have your blood sugar levels rise up in the morning,
yeah.
and I do. My body will make glucose for my brain and any parts of my body that needs it on its own, though. So it's not. I'm not going to need it from outside sources. But yeah, I think that from that aspect I've got it covered, but I think from the sleep aspect and then like the career aspect, trying to find a true path for myself in my career, or the things that I need to work on or that I want to work on, I feel like it could
We
be
sold
better.
a t-shirt here, like
Yeah.
completely
Yes.
unprompted. So we are on our way.
We are big. Yeah, exactly. So what about you? What, like, because for your diet, you've mainly been eating all, pretty much paleo,
Paleo.
right?
Yeah.
Paleo.
So firstly, just to comment on something you said, and then I'll backtrack and I'll tell my story about my ear, and which is linked to the food. I think personality matters, but I do believe, and I believe this is cultural and societal and beyond American, are norms for women and men with respect to food and expectations and body image expectations that are um, just imbued into our
Subconscious.
identity through media, through voices of authority and whatnot. And and I know this from my career and working and selling weight loss products, women, it's not easy for what you just described. A woman would be like, what is he talking about? It's easy. It's not, right? Because there's a whole host, and that's really truly a whole other conversation. There are a whole host of emotions specifically around food and exercise for women that I don't think men, I'm not saying all men, but I don't think men are affected the way women are,
How
right?
so?
So, because meaning, um, has anyone ever told you don't put that in your mouth?
Yeah, but not food. No, I'm joking.
You're such a dork. But
No,
you know what I mean?
listen.
Like there's
Okay, if someone
that's why I
is
said
if
that's a
someone
big conversation.
if someone
So
said to you as a child that, if then
are you
that,
sure you really want to eat that?
yeah,
And not because it's expired.
right, with the subconscious being that will get you fat essentially. Yeah, it's fucked up
Yeah.
though. That's fucked
Yeah,
up.
but that's real.
But
And then that
listen.
continues today.
I don't think that that's something that's put on for women or for men. I think somebody who says that to somebody else is got their own issues and insecurities to deal with. If
Yeah.
somebody is morbidly obese and it's somebody you care about and they're obese, do I think that there's something wrong? I don't think there's anything that wrong in saying that to somebody who's obese, to try to
Well,
educate them, to explain to them that they're leading an unhealthy lifestyle that can get them killed. I
so
don't care
I'm
about hurting someone's feelings if it's going to make them understand that what they're doing is bad for their body. So I think there's two extremes, right?
yes and no. So I'm going to point you to a book by an author called it's called The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. He's
You
a
told me about
I
that
don't know if
book. Yeah.
you it's that's one you want to listen to because that's an encyclopedia. He's the founder of modern psychology. He created the Department of Psychology at Harvard. And his research has shown that more than 80% of women who are morbidly obese were sexually abused. So,
I
and
believe
his,
that. I
so
it's a
the point is
psychological
that if
issue.
you are
People,
obese, there are other conversations to be, and I'm not talking about morbidly obese. I think that is again yet that's yet another podcast, right? That
yeah.
I'm talking about, oh, just change your diet and go carnivore or
No,
just go keto. It's
I
not that
agree.
easy.
No, I agree that, and
Yeah,
that's why I said, because okay, so that's people who have had psychological trauma attributed to it,
correct.
which means that they're using food as a means. It's like no difference
Of
than
control.
say, well, than them say being an alcoholic. It's no different. It's the
Exactly.
same
It's
idea.
escape.
But so my
Hmm.
point is I have my own things that made me the way I am that make me a bad sleeper. Does that make sense? I think there are plenty of people who have no trouble with sleeping and are great sleepers, and they're not doing anything to try to make them better sleepers. They're
So I would argue, only because I've researched this, because I'm the same as you, which is why if I text you at 1:30 in the morning, you're probably up as well. Which means it's 2:30 in the morning for me. So it's there it's been coined sleep sabotage. It's been researched by psychologists. It's actually quite interesting. And you said a few things earlier which, supports it, which is you need that time, even if it's to waste, because you didn't allow it for yourself in your waking hours. And you know about circadian rhythms, you know about hormonal cycles, you're educated. I do too. I know all the harm it's doing. I know that I'm not allowing my body to uh, restore itself and for organs to be quiet and you know what I mean? I know all this stuff, but I still do it. Why? Because the need of that quiet time for yourself to do anything, even stupid stuff, is so much more important. And you didn't allow it for yourself in your day. And if you allow it for yourself in your day, you're going to feel indulgent, you're going to feel selfish, you're going to feel, that is all psychology. That all comes from, I'm not blaming parents by any stretch of the imagination, right? This is a Gen X problem, truly, which is why I think you're a Gen Xer. It is a cultural thing. It is a societal thing. It is how we were raised. It's how, and we say we raised not by our mom and dad, but how we were in our environment. Whoever we listened to or were impressed with made an impact on us that said, okay, I'm going to take this time later. I can think of one person who in our family is also up really, really, really late.
mommy.
Mommy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
there's genetic factors. I know that for sure. I'm not dismissing genetic factors. Like there are people whose rhythms are different, right? Like there's truth to that. Like some people are better at night than in the morning. But we're not talking about staying up till 11 or 12 instead of 9:30 or 10. We're talking about after midnight stuff, right? So
right.
which
Yeah,
no one needs to be doing.
right.
That's because
So
you didn't give yourself the time to have whatever it is you need. You didn't give yourself permission to do that in the day. That's
yeah,
what it
you
comes
don't,
from.
but yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But something's got to give, as far as that goes. I think, I can't, if I'm wasting 2 hours at night on, on social media, on Instagram, watching reels or watching TV, I just don't have time to do that during the day when I've got other stuff to
Because you
do.
don't.
Yeah, there's no
No,
time
no one
for it.
has time for that.
So, and I also
That's
think
that's
that,
different though. That's different. That's the whole dopamine thing.
yeah,
That's no
well,
different than addiction. I mean,
yeah, well, that's the
that's
thing.
yet another thing.
Well, that's why which is why I don't know if it's what going back to what you were just suggesting as far as the research behind it, for me personally, I know that if I just didn't use my phone, I'd have nothing else to do and I'd go to sleep. So,
So there's this whole, I've read a lot of biohacking stuff. Just that's kind of how I got to where I don't know why. Oh, I know why. Because there's always a first book or a first article you read, right? And then you go down the rabbit hole, and then you read the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, right? And
mhm,
I read my first book on this journey I read was by Aubrey Marcus, Own Your Day.
mhm.
And it led me to another book. I can't remember who, a Silicon Valley guy. And he turns off his router at 10 p.m. He has it automatically set up. So then you could say, okay, well, you could still have your cell phone and whatever, but like you can't protect yourself from everything. But at some point, you're not going to be on your laptop. You're not going to be on your TV. So like most of the technology you can distract yourself with is just off.
Yeah, no, I had
Then you're
Carla.
stuck.
I had Carla, and I need to do this again. Literally a few months ago, I had Carla do the screen time thing for me. She set a
Oh
password
yeah.
on. I had her set a password on my phone, and
What's the password?
a couple of times it got to that. I was like, "Hey, babe, can you put in the password? I got to do something. It's cool. It's cool. It's like one more hit, man. Come on, come on, come on. I just need one more little hit. It's bad. So yeah, I need to. The fact that I have to do that, or those lock boxes that
Yeah.
don't allow you to get to your phone. Although,
Yeah.
in case of emergency, I don't know about that, but
That would suck because we don't, you'd
yeah,
have to have a landline for that.
yeah.
You would have to have a landline for that.
But yeah, I think just it's like the whole everybody for exercise at least. Everybody has that straw that broke the camel's back that said, "That's
Yes.
it. I'm doing something about it." There is
Yes.
always that turning point for everybody.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
if once you hit that turning point, I mean, for me with exercise, it was like I literally remember
You were
it.
in high school.
I was in ninth or 10th grade. You know, um, I was I was depressed. I was really skinny, so I think I was self-conscious, about
And
that.
I blame myself for some of that
Yeah,
too.
you called me chicken legs.
Worse than that, I was awful. I was.
Listen,
You don't
listen.
know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. But
Yeah,
in hindsight, if I heard my daughters speaking to one another the way, and here's the thing, I probably never did it in front of our parents
yeah.
because I'm sure I knew it was awful. But I was really mean to you about your physical appearance. I called you skinny and chicken legs, and you were premature. So I used to call you the little baby tadpole, like all these things. Like, how could you not? I
I
think
listen.
about that often, Pierre, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm responsible for his
It's your fault. It's
subconsciousness.
your fault. You are to blame for all of my problems. That's
No,
it.
but I think I have some accountability to
It
take
doesn't.
when it comes to
No, here's
your
the thing. I was talking about this with Andrew. Everybody's gonna get some form, whether it's from a brother, a sister, people at school. It's gonna get people at work are gonna get either what you would consider bullied or now there's different levels of harassment. So I'm not
right,
condoning bullying. I'm not condoning harassment, but
right,
everybody's going to deal with that, and you've got
right,
to. And there's a difference between being like dealing somebody saying something hurtful and you dealing with it versus somebody being like abusive consistently over time, right?
right.
There's two things. And I think we all need to also learn to take our lumps in that sense. Like we can't have
Well, it builds resilience, right? If
right. We
but
can't be a generation of pussies. It's just like, so is that not PC? Sorry.
no, it's okay. Well, if you ever want to air this, you're gonna have to check the box that it doesn't pass.
Oh, yeah. No, this is not. It's got explicit content. I don't care. Yeah, it's all right.
Okay, yeah, explicit. Okay. Um, I listen. I agree. I think I really believe in the feel your feelings, like get angry, but that doesn't give you permission to then go beat someone up. You know what I mean, or whatever. But you are going to encounter adversity in life. You
Yeah.
are. It's just a fact,
Yeah.
and you can't be saved. You can't. You can't. You I'm not talking about infants and toddlers, right? I'm talking about as you get older, the only thing, and I think about now putting my parent hat on, your responsibility is to teach your children how to respond to those situations, not
Exactly.
react.
Hmm.
And because they are, so you can't make those situations go away. You have to teach them how to confront them
Exactly. You
and
don't
and
exactly because
process them.
they're gonna come no matter what. I think,
They're
and I think
happening no matter what,
I mean
sadly.
my favorite
But
my favorite people on earth today are comedians, stand-up comedians, because they haven't been afraid to to go against this whole woke revolution that's been going on, and they're just sticking their guns and saying what they want to say, and they're not being afraid of upsetting people. And you know what? If a comedian says something that pisses me off, so be it. I just won't watch
yeah,
them. But and I mean, I find them funny. But there's comedians that say some crazy things, and hats off to them for having that voice of being able to say whatever the hell they want to say.
yeah, of course. I
Uh,
agree. It's delicate. It is delicate. I think, I tell my girls all the time, they've been home for the last 2 weeks. They only just started school today. So, when you're together 24/7, we, it was a wild ride. And I think my most frequently repeated advice was, girls, you can say almost anything you want. It's how you say it that matters. I'm not telling you to, don't ever censor yourself. Say
yeah.
what you want to say, but it's how you say it. And how you say things means that you've considered your
How
environment
right?
and
How
how
other
someone might react. And then if you choose or respond, and if you choose to do that, that's okay. But know that you're engaging, knowing there's potentially an argument or a fight.
yeah
But just go in with your eyes wide open.
yeah
Don't not speak. You gotta
Te-
you gotta say what you gotta say, but
yeah.
how you say it really matters.
It's being couth, having couth, being able to
Yeah.
assess a
Or
situation.
poise.
Poise,
That's what
yeah.
I'm using this word poise to encompass all of it. But yeah,
Yeah.
poise. Yeah, a hundred
So
percent.
so going back to that clicking moment, I it was like
Yeah,
ninth grade, and I just was like, I'm tired of doing this. We all have that, and
yeah,
so and that since that click happened, you
yeah,
know, I've had a couple of lulls off and on, but pretty much been exercising every day, like 5 days a week since I was 15,
yeah,
so or 14, some whatever,
yeah,
and so I think we all. Well, I think if you can, same thing with the whole sleep habits. I think if I can and things will disrupt it. If something, if there's a weird schedule, weird something that I had that weird travel with jet lag that causes it. But for the most part,
yeah.
if you're able to stay on that regular routine, like we most of the time are in, then it just needs to come to that point to where I say, you know what, enough talking, and I'm getting there. I can feel it. I can feel it bubbling and brewing when I know I'm about to say, you know what. I'm doing something about this, and it's getting
Right.
close. So I think for me, it's just a matter of time before that happens. And
Well,
so
I think what you're saying is super important and something I said with conviction until recently as well. I read a great book by James Cleary called Atomic Habits, which
hmm
talks about what you're talking about, which
Yep.
is, um, you know, once you've formed a habit and you've given it the whatever the research says, the 61 days, or there's some magic
Yeah, the
number at
murder,
some
yeah.
on average, right? But the point is like through conviction and repetition, at some point, it's not that it becomes an automated task, but it becomes ingrained in you. It's a need, and then you need to do it, and then it's not something you even go, oh, I got to do this. It's like it's just part of your identity.
Right. Yep.
What's interesting though is um, what happens when there is, you said jet lag, that might be a setback, but when there's potentially another traumatic event,
Yeah.
something big, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
lose something big or something really bad happens,
hmm
and then you go off course. And
Yeah.
why do you go off course? You go off course because if you go deep, 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 deep into your soul and who you are and who your identity is, you didn't really truly believe it, or you didn't truly believe you were worthy of it, or whatever the adjective you want to use, or actually adverb. uh, so to come to my eating habits, and you asked me about paleo earlier, I lost my hearing in my left ear partially due to stress, but it took about a year and a half to figure out that it was due to stress. Um,
Your drum,
and
was it an infection, right?
no, the
Oh.
cilia in my ear is
Hmm.
damaged. They can see that it's
That's
like,
those are the
yeah,
little hairs that pick up the frequency that allow you to hear,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
And and what I learned as I discovered my ear, because I never thought about my ear, is that your ear is really is your brain. Because we think of our ears, but these are just this is the thing on the outside, right? That
Yeah.
your ear,
Your inner
your
ear.
cochlea, it's in your part of your brain. And I had inflammation from stress that was putting pressure, cut the blood flow, and it's you don't get those back. It doesn't grow
Yeah.
back. So
Right.
I lost the high
Stress from
frequencies,
not sleeping and working.
working, sleeping, doing what I was supposed to do.
You mean
Uh,
that what that means not setting boundaries like you said, right? Basically, when you say supposed to do.
saying yes to, yeah,
Yeah.
doing what the following the course that I went to. I studied what I was supposed to do. I went to the school I was supposed to go to. I did the graduate degree I was supposed to. I got the job I was supposed to do. I got the role and the money I was supposed to. Uh, is this it? This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm over 40. I barely see my kids. I'm stressed out all the time. And now I can't hear. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
laughing about it, but it was very dramatic in the moment, and there were a
Yeah.
lot of tears. And you know, I half my work day to have my chest covered in hives because I was so anxious and stressed out. You
And
know, like I
this is
couldn't
when
wear,
you were brand managing at some fast.
and even before, even
Yeah.
before, even before, even
Yeah.
before,
And I want to
even when
talk
I was doing consulting and whatnot. And but the thing is, until we, by process of elimination, identified it as stress, because that's how you get to that is they do the brain scans, they do they do all the scans, they do all the tests, they inject stuff in your veins, and no, everything's good, everything's good. There's nothing, right? So burst blood vessel from
where
stress. So
in your
in the
ear.
brain, in it's not even it's farther in. I don't even know the right.
So they saw that there was a burst blood vessel. And
No,
oh,
it's
this is the hypothesis based on the fact that they didn't find anything.
right.
Well, like this is a part of the reason
But
why.
wait. I want to come back to
Yeah.
I want to come back to the habit thing.
Yeah.
But for a year and a half, the hypothesis was autoimmune. So inflammation from inflammatory foods.
Hmm.
So what happened was I got no help from my doctor at all.
Sounds great.
And even went to a holistic doctor and got no help from that doctor. She just wanted to sell me her supplements. So I found Dave Asprey and looked at Bulletproof and
Uh-huh.
then thought, okay, and then that led me to Whole30, which
Hmm.
felt more appropriate for me. And then I watched a documentary called Heal, which led me to another documentary on MS. I can't remember what it's called, which led me to Wall's Protocol, which is the scientist and the doctor who invented the paleo autoimmune protocol diet, which
Hmm.
then Whole30 adopted. And when you look at it, everyone's kind of branded it their own, but
Yeah. It's all
it's
sides
all
of
the
the same
same thing.
coin. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's eliminate allergenic foods,
Yeah.
eat a shit ton of vegetables, people. Like, come on, you just need a lot of vegetables. And I know we can have another conversation about carnivore, but this is what this says. Eat a lot of vegetables.
Yeah,
And when
I
you
have a
eat your
bone to pick
meat,
with that one because it
yeah.
goes to the phyto. We'll talk about phytochemicals in a minute, but keep going.
So, um, so what happened is I did that. I did it religiously because and the inflammation went down. It did. It got rid of the inflammation. It got rid of, but what was happening too is I was all these massive diet changes. I was exhausted. And so I went to bed at 8 o'clock. I get the kids ready for bed and I'd go to bed and I'd sleep from 8 to 6.
Nice.
I'd get 10 hours of sleep. So then who knows? Was it the food? Was it the sleep? I don't know. I still
Yeah.
wasn't exercising because I
Yeah, you hadn't got to it yet, right?
hadn't gotten to it yet. But
Yeah.
I did the eating, I did paleo AIP and they slowly reintroduced nuts and found I was fine with that. And
AIP.
autoimmune protocol.
Okay, right. Okay.
And I'm gonna tell you, I've never felt better in my life. And I did that religiously until COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit
Right.
and I started drinking a lot of wine and eating the kids' Oreos and then I realized my ear's not ringing. Oh, so it's not a
I
and in the
can.
meantime, I remember COVID had just started and I finally went back to the doctor. It was just that in that March timeframe. And they're like, yeah, no, it's not autoimmune. And I was like, great, I can eat the Oreos. Like I just needed an excuse, you know what I mean, to go back. So I had created a massive lifestyle habit overhaul over the course of a year and a half. And just
Yeah.
like that, with one doctor's visit. And I've never quite gone back completely
Well,
because,
so what was
for
it?
a lot
So
of
so
reasons that we
what
can
was
talk
it then?
about, but
So
what
what?
was what?
Well, I mean, if it wasn't autoimmune, and if it was just, if it was just stress, I mean, or
Stress.
well, or maybe it was due. So, you know, toxins in preservatives and crappy foods.
Or who knows? Yeah,
Like
maybe, who knows?
if you think about like, and this
Not,
is
but I'm not, have no autoimmune issues. I'm
right,
not, I just, none.
right. That's
I
good. I
have
mean, that's
sensitivities to lots of stuff, but I think everyone does,
so it
me
could
and dairy are not friends.
so
So,
so 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 yeah. And so psychosomatic essentially, right? Like you know, so, stress cause
probably isn't
right.
everything. I mean, back
I
to the
think
whole
for me,
mind
a lot of
body.
yeah, that's part of the issues that made me decide to go carnivore were because of a lot of stress and anxiety, and so having to find ways to reduce that and simplify things and figure out that, oh, it's not necessarily, is it my diet or is it not my diet? I know that I feel mentally better, and I think the reason I bring up the phytochemicals in vegetables is because vegetables have, and depending on which vegetable and the person eating them, vegetables innately have these defense chemicals inside of them as their defense mechanism
Oh, like
to
egg.
not be
I
eaten.
mean, like the whites of an egg as well, right? I mean, they're
Well, no. So phytochemicals are actual toxins, whereas like some people who respond to foods differently, like that don't necessarily have toxins, but they're autoimmune, their body reacts to it differently. So like known plants that are known that
like
have no
spinach and
oh,
kale and
oh,
stuff like that.
right, exactly. Spinach,
Yeah,
kale,
that's why you're supposed to heat them a little
right,
bit first
spinach
before eating. Yeah,
especially, and
yeah.
obviously there's if you eat certain beans or
Oh
berries
yeah, I can't do any legumes.
or berries that are poisonous that will kill you, right? So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
certain levels of toxins in vegetables, which is why the carnivore diet is if what they call the lion diet. So Jordan Peterson and his daughter both have, or his daughter specifically has, you should check her out. I think her YouTube is the Lion Diet, I think. But essentially she's had an autoimmune disease since she was a kid that caused her bones to become brittle and break, and she had to do
Hmm.
she's had broken bones throughout the course of her entire
I've
life.
seen her interviewed on Joe Rogan, I think. So
Okay.
I know. Yeah,
Yeah. And so obviously for that, something that extreme, she went on what's called the lion diet, which is literally just
yeah, yeah,
beef and that's
yeah,
it. So it's like the
yeah,
ultimate elimination diet to remove any type of, somebody who's extremely sensitive to that. Richard
yeah,
was telling me he had a client who was extremely sensitive to strawberries. So I
yeah,
think, everybody has what, from a diet perspective, and we can be so dogmatic and almost religious about diet, right?
yeah. Oh my
But
God. I
but
mean,
I
tell me, I worked in the industry for 7 years. I know
yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
So I think, or as individuals think, if the second I tell somebody that I'm doing carnivore, they're like, oh, your cholesterol, you're gonna die, you're gonna have a heart attack. I'm like, that's not really how it works. But and again, I don't advocate any specific diet for anybody unless they're trying to
Yep.
figure out what makes them work and what doesn't work for them.
Yes.
For example, there's plenty of people who eat what they call the blue zones, but people who eat large amounts of who eat rice, who eat pasta, and they
Yep.
live to be 100. So I think a lot of it has to do with self-experimentation as far as food goes, experimenting
I
and
agree.
trying to do as best you can to figure out what works for you. But then also,
Yep.
like you said, food, it may not be the end all be all. It's part of
It's not. It's part
that
of a whole
a
system.
whole system, right? If
Hmm.
you go on this exploratory adventure that you did and you cut out all types of what you consider to be inflammatory foods, but at the same time you start to meditate, you start to read books that help you get some perspective, you start to sleep more, so you're doing all the things, maybe you start to exercise if it's somebody else, but you do all these
Exactly.
things that are going to make your life better, and you're like, hey, and then you're like, crap, which one is it?
You don't.
You don't,
That's
you
like
don't know.
in math. In math, that's what they call confounding variables. It's like I don't know why sales went up. We did these seven things. It's like, well, what are you gonna not? You just, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Does it, unless you're dying,
Yeah.
right? Like, does it matter? If you
No,
like,
you're doing things that make
me,
you
like
that.
if you do it, well, you do it to create a baseline. Like ideally, you create a baseline, right? Like the
Yeah.
part I skipped as well is they did allergy testing on me at the same time because again, the theory to get to the autoimmune was first let's start looking at allergies, and so that's where it all started, and they did the thing on the back, right? They tested me on the back for everything. I was allergic to everything. That's not possible. It's
So
not it's not possible to be allergic to everything. When you are allergic,
unless you're really stressed out and like your body's just like on at the edge of, yeah.
exactly,
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I got
Because you
hives.
are in perma inflammation,
Yeah.
which I was.
A chronic fight or flight state of
Correct.
where
Correct.
your adrenals are working hard over time, adrenal fatigue maybe.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
a mess.
I
I
had
knew that.
hives.
I knew that. I mean, I was a mess. I
I
was
had
allergic to everything.
yeah.
I mean, everything. I'll send you it was like a joke.
That's crazy.
It was a joke. And I'm not, I know I'm not allergic to everything, but I was allergic to everything. But
Goes
that's
to
why
show.
anything and everything I was eating was just making it worse. So I was
Right.
like, okay, I'm
I'm just
just
gonna
gonna.
not eat. No, yeah. What else can you do? No,
So that's why I went down the inflammatory route. And I was like, okay, well, even if it's not autoimmune, let's just remove all inflammatory foods. So at least let's get this under control,
yeah.
and then there was this theory of leaky gut, right? Which could have been linked to poor diet at the time associated with stress. And obviously, my comfort food is carby. So like overdoing it on gluten and stuff like that. So, but again, who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? At the end of the day, what's the goal? What is the purpose? Everyone's going to have their own individual purpose, their individual. But what's the point of all this? Like,
Yeah.
what is the point of all that? Why are we doing? What? Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? Why don't we just sit on the beach, get fat, smoke cigarettes, get drunk, and like what? And just watch the tide roll in all day. Like, why don't we just do that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the smoking thing. I mean, smoking once in a while, but yeah. Yeah, no, I
But
know.
you know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, why not lead a completely hedonistic, indulgent life?
Well, you can, right? But then it catches up. We were talking about balance earlier, right? It's like you can't live uh what is the term from Star Wars? Only a Sith lives in extremes. Like the what
Yeah,
leads you to the dark side as a Jedi is living in extremes, right? It's not
yeah,
having balance. So
I,
I think
yeah. I mean,
it's
I think about it differently. I think, and maybe it's because I'm a mom, but I think about it in terms of legacy. And I think the greatest way, and again, children have all influences, their coaches, their teachers, whatever. But when they're with me under my roof, in my presence, what are they doing? They're just mimicking everything I do.
hmm
They're just mirroring my behaviors. That's
sure,
what they're designed to do.
right? They're little
That's what they
sponges.
literally, the mirror neurons, like, right. That's what they were designed to do. They Sometimes I'll watch them behaving and I'm like, oh my God, they sound just, and not necessarily with good behavior, with good
Yeah,
action. And I'll be like, oh God, that's I did that the other day. They're just copying me. Or I said that the other day. They're just
yeah,
copying me. You know what I mean? So I think of it like if when I'm looking for a greater purpose, like why am I not just letting myself go, so to speak? I'm like, because I have a responsibility for the next generation. Like, and that's what keeps me motivated in any case. It's like,
Good.
but I don't want to. It's like, because what a gift for my kids to not torture themselves with the conversations we are having.
You're
I
talking
don't want
about
them to
what?
be
You're talking about like with food specifically, or what do you
food,
mean?
diet, exercise, choices, happiness, all of it. Like
Yeah.
I want it to be, not everyone tortures themselves with these kinds of things.
No, but I guarantee you, you're doing things that are gonna extend your life, and
Also true.
so I mean, I think that again, it's like instant gratification versus long term. You're teaching them something
Also.
about discipline. So I don't think there's anything like, again, like you said, the balance is like not you don't want to show your kids this completely hedonistic way of life, and that like life is only here, have all the Oreos you want because they taste good. Like
No, no.
I think like you said, it's like it's about that it's about that balance between the two
Yeah,
things. So it's like
yeah.
teaching them, and especially with kids, kids eat way worse than adults who are careful about my kids. They don't eat as healthy as I do. Carla, my wife, doesn't eat as healthy as I do. I don't force it upon Carla, but we're definitely doing things to change that for the kids, because it's like, if you teach them I think a big reason why so many people are overweight and obese is it could be lifestyle choice because of apathy, but I think a lot of it is also mostly educational. People don't
Yeah,
know.
I
People don't
agree.
know that there's 4 grams of calories in a carb, 4 grams
I
in
oh my
in
God, Tara, I
protein.
couldn't agree with you
People
more.
don't know about macros. People don't know about micronutrients. So it's like it's something
They
of
don't.
it's an educational thing. So I
It
think
is it is an education. I
if you
agree.
can teach your kid,
100%.
I remember asking, I remember Maddie asking me whether or not when we were living with you, whether or not pasta was healthy. She was asking me
Oh yeah.
questions because I was telling her about, because I was big into it then. And I was telling her about, and I said
Empty calories.
I said empty calories,
I
but
remember the conversation.
and
I
then
remember
Bill
where
and
I
then
was
Bill
standing.
Bill got pissed off, and I was like, well, in retrospect, pasta isn't completely an empty calorie because it has carbohydrates, it has its uses, it is a calorie, and it does have some nutrients.
Yeah,
So it's not like sugar that you can argue is a complete empty calorie.
yeah,
Like there's some stuff in pasta that
yeah,
can be beneficial, or somewhat, especially if you don't have any other foods. But again,
yeah,
it's all about deciding what type of food is best for you. You know what I mean? So.
yeah.
Um,
It's about choices. I was in a yoga session the other day, and the instructor says, it's the way she said it was so incredible. She goes, "There are no bad choices. There are no good choices. There are just other choices. Stop adding judgment to our choices. Just make another choice." And I was like, "Oh, I love that." Is pasta bad? Yeah, I don't know. There are other choices though.
yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on the circumstance,
And again, in balance, because you know what? I'll tell you what, nothing for me, one of the best things ever is a nice bowl of rigatoni pasta. So,
Oh
or
yeah, pasta
no,
with Maggi
farfalle
and
pasta,
cheese.
bow tie pasta. That's where it's at right there.
Farfalle pasta, and then you put it in a frying pan, lots of butter. You let it get a little crispy. Then you put some cheese, some Gruyere, and you let that get a little crispy, and you
Mm-hmm.
mix it in with the Maggi.
Mm-hmm. That's good. See, for me, with
That's really
my thing
good.
is much simpler. It's very simple, but it's just pasta, a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of butter, garlic, and
Mm,
salt, pepper, crushed red pepper, and basil.
that sounds
But
fabulous
just the
too.
olive oil
Making
and
me
butter.
hungry.
I just like that of it. But so going back to the root cause of your stress was
Yeah.
that caused all this was, and you being the oldest sister, I think has a lot to do with that, right? Placing the weight of the responsibility of being the eldest and having that pressure since you were a kid, since you basically took care of me when you helped take care of me when I was
Yeah.
a baby,
Yeah.
all the way through until your adulthood. It's something you've carried
Yep.
with you your whole life. So
Yes. Yes.
like you said earlier, you go, you finish high school in Australia, you come to the States, you go to University of Chicago, you get your degree in finance, you leave, you go work in finance for a little bit, then you go back to Rochester, New York, you get an MBA, in at Would you
University of Rochester.
University of Rochester?
Yeah.
You come out of that. You go to did you went to Bird's Eye Foods, or what's the
Bird's
company?
eye.
Bird's Eye. So
Yeah. And then Unilever.
and then you went to Unilever, and then when you won Unilever, you were basically, since you left there, you've been doing marketing. So you were brand managing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You were managing the
Mm-hmm.
brand,
Yeah.
Bird's Eye Foods,
I started in like 2004. So yeah, it's been a while now.
and
Almost
then
20 years.
and then you started with, and
Yeah.
then you went to can't believe you started with I can't believe it's not butter, right?
I can't believe it's not butter. And
Then you got
then
promoted to Suave, and
Suave.
then
And
Popsicle.
then Breyers,
Oh,
Breyers ice cream and
Breyers,
popsicle,
and then
launching all the gelatos,
yeah,
and then
Slim Fast.
Slim Fast. Yeah.
So you were the brand manager. What is that? Does that mean you're like you are the senior kind of, you manage the brand and you decide 100% where the direction of the brand is, or how does that work with
Yes
what the
and
role of a
no.
brand manager?
The way they describe it, and like if I were in HR and trying to recruit someone, you're the hub of the spoke of a wheel, in the sense that are you the ultimate decision maker in a large organization like a Unilever? No. But you are the ultimate filter that you then bring it to the decision maker, which is either a CMO or a director CMO or some lead country lead if you're working for a
Right. You're not
multinational organization.
you're not the boss of the company, but you're the boss of the brand, and you report to the person who manages all the brands, basically.
Correct. And then they have to say, oh, well, I love that you're doing this, but this brand was going to be doing that. So, let's adjust. You know what I mean? They're looking at it from a portfolio perspective as opposed to just, so you're like a mini entrepreneur. You get to, you know, figure out what should be on shelf. So let's just, I don't know, let's take soap. That's boring. Let's take ice cream. That's more fun. You know what's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, caramel, cookies and cream. Okay. That will be forevermore, right? Those are chocolate and vanilla will be forevermore. Let's just say that. And the rest may or may not change. But that's 60% of what sells. And then so you're not going to change that. And then you get to decide what should the 40% be. So talk to consumers. What do they like? What do they want? Identify trends, try to get ahead of it or try to
Hmm.
follow it depending on what your strategy is. Make it, work with the manufacturing plants to produce it, but before that, work with R&D or the food scientists to develop it, create it. What's the ratio of fat? What's the ratio of sugar? How much vanilla? What kind of vanilla? Is it Madagascar vanilla? What kind of, like, does it have vanilla beans or are we using extracts? So what's in it? How creamy do you want it? What does the packaging look like? Is it a bright color or is this a new line? Should this be positioned as something unique and different, like gelato, as opposed to what's gelato? Oh, that's just coming in over from other countries now. Let's get ahead of it. Or do we wait? Do we wait for another brand to go first and then fast follow? And then how much should it cost? Is it $4? Is it $6? Do we make large gallons for Walmart, or do we only make pints and we only sell at grocery stores? So and then wait, we got people need to know what this thing is. So how do you inform people? Do we create a Facebook page? Do we create TikToks? How often do we get ambassadors? Do we hire celebrities to talk about it? Do we do a PR show? Do we go on the morning shows and talk about it? Do we find a way do we advertise? Back in the day, print, it doesn't really exist anymore. Do we buy ad space? Do we create a TV commercial? Always, yes. TV is still the number one way to video, right? Is the number one way to get people. Well, then you got to cast the people. Well, what does the brand represent? Who's the ideal consumer? If she's too blonde, the brunette won't buy it. If she's too white, no, so you think about all those things, right?
Yeah.
So, and so I ideally you've created something, but in parallel, you're monetizing it, right? You're not
Yeah.
just putting something on the shelf for fun. What's the cost? Does it have a gross margin? Is the margin over 35%? That's just a general industry standard for packaged goods. But if you're in the vitamin and nutritional space, you're not looking at anything under 65 or 70%. Is it a non-starter, or is it like, are we talking about getting it out the door and then in 6 months we can bring the margin down so it's worth it? So it's all of the aesthetics and emotional connection with the brand to create it, and then marketing it and selling it, but then also making sure it's financially viable. So it's really like being a little mini entrepreneur widget or a line of widgets.
Right.
Except when you do it at a Unilever, you're under the safe space of a portfolio manager. There's fancy titles for all this stuff, but
Right.
that if it doesn't work, you're not
There's
going
less
broke.
risk. Yeah.
There's less risk.
So,
Exactly.
um,
But it's
you
very
know,
stressful
yeah.
because
Well, it sounds like
just like
you're covering, you're wearing a lots of hats, and you're having to
hats.
because you're managing all that. You've got to make sure you're doing everything, and you know, marketing. I admit it's a study. A lot of it is a study in human psychology. A lot of it
It is.
is,
It's mostly psychology.
and you know, I may sound inflammatory with the question I'm about to ask, but I've always thought about this.
It's okay.
What, because I was, Andrew was telling me about the person, his name was Bernays, and he's the one who basically made breakfast. He marketed breakfast to make it what it was, turn it
Oh
into
yeah,
a
of
thing.
course.
But
So
the
did
idea,
Kellogg's.
what is the difference aside from possibly its definition leading on the political spectrum between propaganda in news versus marketing a brand? Like, the goal at the end of
They're
the day is
they're the same family. It's the same family,
you're
right?
you're you're
So
trying to what's the word, influence somebody to buy something that they don't think they need or that they may not even need
more
but
than
they want.
influence, convince them.
Yeah.
You make what's called PDQs, which are like the things that you pop up in store to put on an end cap.
Yeah.
It says buy now.
So do you have any
How do I sleep at night?
no do you have any conflict? Well, yeah, have you thought about that, because you've been doing it for,
Of
you
course,
did it for a long time,
100%,
and what what
100%.
what what were your kind of, did you have any
I've
conflicts, internal
never,
conflicts about that, or
I've never marketed a product I wouldn't take myself, that I wouldn't consume myself, that I don't consume myself.
what about I can't believe it's not butter?
I ate that stuff.
You eat margarine?
I At the time, I wouldn't
Yeah.
now.
Right.
But that's the
Knowing.
thing. It's like
Yeah.
now, would I manage that brand? Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Well, you
Not that there's
remember.
anything wrong with it, but it's not right. It's not right for me in the life that I am. Like I wouldn't be. Because again, I have high integrity standards, and I'm not going to sell something. I don't have to. I don't have to believe in it as a diehard, but it can't do harm. I can't believe it'll do harm. If I believe it'll do
Yeah.
harm, I
Right.
absolutely will not touch it.
Well, like,
I won't touch it.
and
Or for
so.
example, I've had many job opportunities, and with sexualized content, right? Where the lead, I'm not going to name the brands because it's not appropriate. Okay. But I've had two opportunities, one in personal care and one in the vitamin space, where the predominant marketing approach was using sexualized content
Mhm.
to sell. Not interested.
Right.
I'm not,
Yeah.
and in both cases, indulged the interview to tell them why I was not interested.
That's good. Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that
Yeah. I
because,
think.
yeah,
I think there's
but propaganda and marketing are two very different things, right? Like,
one's for political
um,
gain, I guess, versus the other one being monetary gain, I suppose.
yes. So they're two different things. They're the same family, so to speak, from a psychological perspective. What are you trying to do? You're trying to take a current human behavior, understand what that human is thinking and doing now, looking at your product, whatever it is, a political belief or a bar of soap or a tub of ice cream, and say, how do I get this person to believe or consume this? We're going to use consumption because when you believe something, you're consuming, right? So what's the bridge? What do I have to change in between? So is it mind alteration? Yes. What do you think a TV commercial is? You are selling a vision. That's why TV commercials work so well. You are selling a vision to an idle consumer who is on the couch and idle. And again, now we're on our phones and on TikTok. But the point is, you are in escape, calm mindset, and you're being fed a dream, a visualization, a vision board of what your life could be when you have this, when you experience this product. I'm going to be more beautiful. It's all emotional.
Mm-hmm.
It's all emotional. I will be prettier, happier, smell better, whatever the attributes are. And there's
Mm-hmm.
science to discover the right attributes. You don't randomly create a TV commercial with the attributes. You do research to find out what are the attributes the most likely to pivot, that a person will pivot on, just like in political campaigns. It's the from methodology perspective, it's the same. It is the
Right.
same. The
You see,
intentions are different,
you
but
have
it's the same.
you have the experience. You would have the experience to go and work for a specific political figure to help them with their campaign if you wanted to, essentially based on your
You would
experience.
take my resume and you would tweak words
Yeah.
and tweak products, and it's the same action. It's the same funnel of activity.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think having
It's
that.
saying, here's an action, you back solve from an action. This person is doing this. Why is this person doing this? Because they have a set of behaviors or habits
Mhm.
and attitudes, they're called. Where do those come from? It's because they have beliefs that come from here. Okay. So what are those beliefs and where do they come from? And ultimately, what is the identity? Meaning, what is, if this political figure walks into this room, what do they stand for? If this brand walks into a Walmart buyer meeting, what does it stand for?
Yeah.
It's the same
Same
thing.
thing.
And
Yeah.
then you create a persona, and then you cast characters that embody the persona of what it stands for, so that you know how you're going to feel when you
Yeah.
experience the product.
It's
It's the same thing.
it's kind of, it's kind of scary though too when you think about
Of
it,
course.
because if you have, somebody who has the knowledge, say, that you have, but doesn't have, and who doesn't have the integrity, or who doesn't have the same, motivation to say, well, take Ansel Keys, right? I don't know if you remember the guy who basically demonized the fat industry to help
Oh yeah.
propel the sugar
Yeah, yeah,
industry, right?
yeah.
Which could be the cause for the reason why so many people are fat today, or obese, possibly.
That's so more. I mean,
I mean, but well,
one of a
that
thousand
one of the
reasons.
thousands reasons, the fact that we were able to that we've manufactured so many more foods on such a larger scale that are palatable and make you want to eat them without even being hungry, right? I was telling Andrew, it was like, you're hungry if you can't eat another boiled egg, but you're not going to stop eating a potato chip because it just tastes so damn good, because it's the perfect
Of
mix of
course. Of course.
fat and
Salt.
carbs. Yeah. But if it's kind of scary if you have people who have the knowledge in means, and people are doing this all the time today, but doing it from on the media side.
Maliciously?
Well, not maliciously, but to I don't think their intent is like they're sitting in the corner going, like Dr. Evil
Yes.
style. But I think
So,
they're trying to push whatever their agenda is, whether
yes.
it's political, whether it's, but to manipulate people to make much. Listen, what I put into my body over a long period of time, that it can be a problem, right? If, like, for example, branding ice cream, which has got a lot of sugar, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because it's an indulgence if people understand that's what it is, right? It's like, you can't make ice cream a staple in your diet, and if somebody somehow gets brainwashed or believe that, to think that eating this, for example, you can't make false claims that saying this ice cream is going to make you healthier. You know what I'm saying? Or it's going to make
No, but my job was to figure out ways how to get people to eat it every day for dessert.
Right. So again, so it's that fine line between, like, your conviction between, like you said, you wouldn't rep the margarine brand, but when we know now just how over, in my opinion, how shit margarine is in general, and how that's like people were convincing that margarine is better for you than butter, right?
Yeah,
Which
because
is,
Fabio is like
he's got the
the bomb
hair. Yeah.
and he's got
He,
the hair. So,
I
and
can't
again,
believe
this
it's
goes back to like the late 80s. So it's but yeah,
yeah.
I want
Fabio
Fabio
was
to come.
the
No, I'm not me, but like I
just
wanted
for the kids
Fabio to
who don't know who Fabio was. He was we're old. Who the
look him
hell is
up.
Fabio? Look him up. He was the
Fabio,
spokesperson for
I
margarine.
can't believe it's not butter.
Um,
So it is a fine line. So here's something interesting. I'm just going to put fuel on the flame. And then someone could say to this, but you're just a hypocrite. I find ways to justify my behaviors so I can sleep well at night. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but um, if you look at headlines today, there was a really interesting New York Times article validating this actually very recently. Headlines are almost all negative as opposed to positive.
Yeah,
And I'm going to
sure.
screw up the time frame and the data, so nobody please quote me on any of this, but I'm going to give you the general sense. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, most headlines were positive or negative. They were just stating the news. This good thing happened, this bad thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Some research was done in the 90s, late 80s, all aligned with the stuff we were just talking about as we got smarter on the statistics and the effectiveness of return on investment on media. When you have a negative headline, what the
Mm-hmm.
likelihood of clicking through is.
Yep.
It's 6 times more likely to click, watch, bot, whatever metric KPI you want to use when you have a negative hook, right?
Yep.
Which is why a lot of TV advertising focuses on, are you fat? Okay, we'll make you thin, right? Because hook
Yeah.
them with the negative. If anyone I ever worked with ends up watching this, they will laugh and say, yep, she did do this. I fought that tooth and nail because
Good. Yeah.
it is not right. It is not right. The goal is to scare people
Right.
and create this stress and anxiety
Yeah.
to act where then you're the solution. It is
Well, it's
highly
clickbait.
effective.
It's how clickbait works today in
But
all
it's not
news
called
articling.
clickbait anymore.
Right.
It's
But
just the way the look at the news. After we wrap this up, go look at the news
oh
with
yeah,
that in
no.
mind, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, she's right.
Well, hey,
It's all negative.
I should run an experiment. So I could title this video one of two things. I could title it, and then at the beginning of the video, before I make the video, I'll make a cut of a scene. I can do one version where we're talking about happiness and the things that make you happiness, and then title the video about finding happiness, blah, 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 blah. That would be one
Yep.
video. And then it'll be the same. And then the other one I'll have as the intro where we're talking about propaganda and marketing
And
and
evil
make
marketers,
it
yeah.
right. And then
And how
see
we're
which.
destroying the world and brainwashing. You're gonna get way more clicks on that one.
Right. Let's just see as a social experiment. I may
Oh,
do
I
that.
already know we already know the answer. So
It's
I'm
crazy.
telling you, but it'll be interesting to see for yourself. But I think also and I'm not plugging the stuff I'm working on right now because it's not even I mean it's public, but I haven't started promoting it. But that's why I started doing this Kyetu stuff. Because what I realized uh,
Hold on,
and
really.
Kyetu is Kyet. Go ahead.
Well, I
Oh,
just
you want
wanted
me
to.
to do this?
No, I do want you to do this. I want to, but
Oh,
I just wanted to say one quick thing. No, oh no, go ahead, finish that thought. Tell me about Kyetu, your brand.
yeah. So Kyetu is spelled Kyetu, and it's inspired from the French Kyetu, which means who are you? Because a lot of the work that I've done in my 20 years of marketing has come back to this core belief of identity, right? Which meaning if you haven't strategically defined choicefully with your own agency who you are, and more importantly, who you want to be, to come back to the mortality conversation we had, you can go to the gym, you can eat carnivore, you can do whatever, but the minute any kind of lifestyle trauma hits, which it will, it's just life, you're going to be off balance. So you're going to go through these periods of equanimity and balance and feeling like you got it all figured out. Shit's going to hit the wall. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden your world's going to get blown up. And the reality is if you know who you are, you have conviction for who you are, and you have defined those values and those belief systems, then you have a strategic underpinning to create a path to define and design your life that is built around who you want to be when you grow up, right? As opposed to who you were told you were supposed to be by society, by the man, by your parents, by the teacher, whatever, right? Because we get to that point and it's usually in our 40s. So some people are earlier, but most people it's later.
Hmm.
And it's because you're going through school and then you get married and you have kids and you're all like, you're surviving as opposed to designing. Um, why were we talking about this? Oh, my marketing background. What I realized is that's what I do with widgets.
With a
That's what
product.
I do with widgets.
Yeah.
That's what I do. The first thing you do when you create a brand or I get past a brand. Here's the brand. It's been around for 40 years. Now own it. You're the brand manager. What are you going to do with it? What's the first thing you do? Of course, you look at sales and you look at this, you look at the health. But when you go deep and you go down, what do you do? Well, what's the brand? What's its brand? What's the brand identity? Who's the brand? What does it stand for? What are the brand's values? What tone does it use when you copyright? How does it interact
Copyright.
with
Can
consumers?
can you elaborate on the
Oh,
meaning of
copyright
copyright?
when
Yeah.
you write text, when you write TV scripts, when you communicate on behalf of the brand, how are you communicating? That's your identity. And then I just came to realize I have this incredible skill set from, post from my MBA in marketing and finance, and then from 20 years in the field working for both public companies, private equity companies. It's like, well, I want to put it to good. I want to put it to good.
Yeah.
And these are just, you could say, well, you can go see a therapist.
Well,
The therapist isn't going to do this for you. You could go see a coach. Yeah. But a coach doesn't have 20 years of strategic marketing experience. I could pay for, yes, you could listen to Tony Robbins. Absolutely. But what I'm building is a, a personal branding framework that is actionable because why would you not want to? Because the tools exist. They've just never been developed for humans,
so
just to sell stuff
just to
for
be
profit.
clear, the tools when you say that, like when you say the brand Kyetu is designed to help people find themselves, essentially by the definition of the name
Yes,
Kyetu.
and
Who are you?
so almost not find themselves, define themselves. And I
Give
think there's a
themselves
big difference.
to give them purpose, a sense of purpose. Is that the idea?
More than that. Um, and this may be more pervasive in women, I have found in my conversations, but if you ask most 40-year-olds, and I think there's a younger generation that is probably not going to need these tools. They're going to need help with other stuff, but every generation is raised a little bit differently, right? But if you
Yeah.
ask, let's say, if you ask most 35 to 50-year-old women very candidly and vulnerably, what do you want? They can't answer it. And when they do answer, they can tell you what they don't want, or they can, ha ha ha, they can say, oh, I just want to have a glass of wine and watch TV. I'm not talking about that. What do you want from your life? Most people are like, I don't know, I'm just surviving every day.
Right.
I'm just, every day is assault. Every day is another, I don't know. What do you mean? What do I want?
Right. Well, that's
I
very
want to pay
broad.
my bills.
Right.
I want to stop fighting with my husband. I want to make more money.
So are
But
all
it's
these
all very negative, right?
are,
It's all it comes defensively. There's no offense. So, meaning it's reactive. So, the stuff I'm building, and you can't come to the stuff I'm working on until you're ready, right? You can't. Because it's just like someone who has an addiction until they realize I'm done, I'm running. You can't say, please stop,
right.
please change, please whatever. But
Right.
at some point, someone has that moment. Everyone does at some point, and they're like, okay, well, I need tools. What do I know this isn't right. I need to pivot.
So what ways they can take, so basically how can they take action to improve their lives? Is that the idea? It's a way.
More more than improve, but elevate, grow, improve, design strategically for their benefit. And it starts with knowing what you want. And I like to use the word desire. I know that word's it's been bastardized, like, ooh, desire. It's not like lingerie desire, right? It's like
Yeah.
from the Latin desideret, which means from the stars, meaning like you're reaching for the stars. Oh, I don't have permission to go there. I'm not asking you if you think you're educated enough or wealthy enough or worthy enough. What do you desire? Most people cannot. I swear, ask,
No,
do another social
I,
experiment. Ask. Most people cannot answer that question
right,
because we go to school and we're told what we're supposed to learn.
right,
Then towards high school, we're told what we're supposed to do in going to college. And when we get to
right.
college, we're advised what we're supposed to study. And then at the end of college, we're advised where we're supposed to, but no one ever says, what do you really want? And if they do, it comes with, oh, yeah, well, you can't do that because you're not going to make enough money. Or you can't do that because our family doesn't do this. Or there's always something. And you know what? When you're 15 to 25 years old, you take that stuff to heart. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to bury that and I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do because these people must know better. Meanwhile, they're miserable, you know?
Yeah, but I think it's just I don't know if anybody could ever answer that question. I think, knowing
Yes, you
what
can.
you I mean, the only way I feel like I can answer is uh people want to be happy and they don't want
I'm
pain.
talking, I'm talking, I am talking visualizing either from a space of lack, want. If you look up the etymology of want, it means lacking. So either from a place of lacking, meaning
I want
I
a
have
car.
felt, yeah,
Okay.
it can be from the mundane to the lofty, right? Like I have always wanted a Porsche.
Right.
Okay, write that down.
Hmm.
And what happens if you start mind mapping what you desire,
Hmm.
you'll giggle through it. You'll be like, okay, this is stupid. I've always wanted to do this. But you write it down, and then all of a sudden you filled 30 pages of stuff. And then you go back, and some of them are ridiculous.
Right.
But then you find 3 to 5 things in there that you're like, I actually want to work on this. I want to
Hmm.
do this.
Hmm.
And it's not about selling everything and putting on a backpack and traveling the world, although that could be what you want. I mean, I'm not, it can be, but typically it's small, big things like I want to feel pretty when I look in the mirror. I want to go to bed at night feeling like I had a really good day. I want to feel I'm loved. You know, you can go from the deep and then you choose your clusters. The best thing to do is to do this on sticky notes actually, so that you can
Hmm.
organize it. But then
So,
you're creating a strategy for yourself. And you can
so
say, you know what? This is too much. This is overwhelming. But you don't throw it away. So you're
yeah.
essentially creating the pathway to a vision board as opposed to just cutting out pictures
Right.
from whatever the magazine gave you, which is usually some glorified thing that's not necessarily healthy for you anyways, you
Yeah.
know? But it starts by, and then when you know what you want, you can build a pathway to it. Whether it is a car, it doesn't matter what it is.
Hmm.
I want to own my home. I'm tired of renting and giving my money to someone else. How do I do that? What is the next first step I take? Then what is the next first step? How do I do that? What are 5 things I can do? What is one thing I can do now? And what are 4 things I can do tomorrow?
And
And then you
so
build a timeline. It's
Kyetu
actual.
Kyetu would give people the tools to know how to take action in these
Correct.
steps. That's the idea. Okay.
Correct. Because that's essentially what marketing is. Because
Right.
if you translate that to a product,
So it's like a course. Would it be a course or what's
I don't
the
know yet. I have to
yeah,
figure it out. Right now, I'm just pontificating and writing
yeah.
blogs and doing social media content. I have a lot of stuff that I've started to create. Um, but what I know as a fact of how we live today is it has to be small. It has to be under 160 characters. It has to be bite sized because I also am a firm believer in the fish where the fish are kind of thing. That doesn't mean you can't go and have a revolution and create your own platform. But the way I would like to approach it, because I'm not willing to go out and look for private equity money or venture capital money. You know what I mean? Like I want to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that'll change, but right now, today,
Mm.
I have to make it. I have to. This has to exist on technology that already exists, right? I'm not building an app, so to speak. So it has to use technology that I can currently use, which means social media platforms that already exist,
Right.
and website platforms that already exist. So, and the way people consume those products right now, no one sits down and reads a 45-minute blog anymore.
Yeah.
15
Right.
years ago, even 10 years ago, they did.
Right.
Everything's bite size. Everything's under,
20.
ideally, 15 to 20 seconds. I think the new TikTok stat that just came out recently was 17 seconds is the sweet spot. So I'm trying to figure out, how do you make this consumable and sellable
Yeah.
and um, productive in under 17 seconds? Hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you also think about, though, like this podcast being an example, there is a big surge in popularity for long
Long
formats,
form content.
long
There
form
is.
content. So
Yep.
that may
I
also
agree.
be that may also
Yep.
be an answer. But yeah, I mean, the hard part is like, how do you get somebody to do they fill out a form, and or like how do
Yes.
they, yeah,
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
fill out
Oh,
online
if you're
survey.
asking practically, what does it look like? It's a
Yeah.
workbook. It's a
Yeah.
workbook.
Okay.
It's a workbook. Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely, it's a workbook.
Mm-hmm.
It's a work page, worksheet, whatever, diary, journal, but it is a guided workbook. Is the ultimate thing. I'm never going to be the person that goes on stage and does you know, I'm not, some people love to get on, do the
The
road
TED talk,
shows.
the TED Talks.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Never say never, but that's not the ambition. Because again, that is fabulous. I think of that as inspiration. That's inspirational,
Right.
but it's not practical.
Right.
You leave one of I've been to many of those workshops. You go to those workshops, you get super pumped. You do it for 3 days and then and then you don't.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just don't. It's just the
Yeah.
way it is.
I mean, I got that Tony years ago, a decade ago. I got that
Tony
Tony
Robbins.
Robbins.
I know, I
mm,
listened to it, The Edge,
Yeah. The ultimate edge.
the Ultimate Edge.
But I mean, I did get a lot from it. It did in some things I still think of and use to this day. So there's a lot to come
Yeah.
from it. But yeah, the hard part is
Today's gonna be a great day.
the
Today's gonna be a great day. The
yeah,
incantations. I do that every
right,
time I go on the cold plunge.
yeah,
Today's gonna be
yeah.
a good day.
I'll get into that cold plunge when I can muster the balls to do it. I'm just
Yeah. You take away a lot, but I'm talking about creating a strategic framework that is a blueprint and ultimately something that you can print and put by your bedside table
yeah.
and wake up every morning and be like, I decided this is who I want to be.
You know what I think?
This is
Sorry to
why
interrupt.
Kyetu. No,
Yeah.
go ahead, go
I
ahead.
think I think the thing that may be probably the best thing for this one, because it requires community and it requires people to communicate, is a Facebook group. I
Group.
think I
Oh yeah,
think
for
I
sure.
think I think
Eventually.
I think well, I think the whole thing could, like, because you can have forums on there, you can have people interacting, you can
Yeah.
do polls. Like, I think the group is, and people, I mean, I'm part of a T2 Terminator 2 fan base group, and these people are crazy fans, and I'm a huge fan of the movie too. But you wouldn't
I
think
didn't
there'd
know
be
that.
an entire group
Get in
dedicated
the
to that.
chopper,
And
yeah. Get in
every
the
day,
chopper.
get to the chopper. You've got people like
Every day.
you've got people like you've got people like noticing things from the movie. I mean, they're talking about nuance of the characters, they're dissecting. The point is, people, when they get into something and there's a community around it, they get into it hardcore. And I think, these Facebook groups, or Reddit, I think, or long form podcasts or whatever, these are ways that people can really come to it on a regular basis, without.
Problem is you don't own your data or the consumer base when you do that. So I agree with you. We've talked about this even with the quote stuff and some of the other stuff that my experience in marketing has taught me that Facebook TikTok, all that stuff, critical, critical for promotion and for community, but it's rented space.
Yeah.
So you still need the underpinning of right now it's a website. Who know with AI what it's going to evolve into? But right now it's still a website so that you know you have access to the data,
Yeah.
not what someone else is telling you the data is.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I agree with you. That's 100% community. Big part is sharing. Yeah.
Sounds
So
like a
yeah, I
fun.
know. I'm trying to do marketing for this next chapter in my life to be marketing for good and using the skill set that I have for the benefit of our highly anxious, stressed out, populace. And ultimately my goal is I have young daughters, one in particular approaching tweendom, is, they're it's really hard to be a teenager these days. And when you look at some of the stats around suicide and anxiety and medication and drug use, they're all indications that I believe that there's an opportunity to use the program I'm developing also for young adults,
Hmm.
um, and eventually, hopefully, for parents with children.
Why do you think that is though? Is it uh, uh,
I think kids. Listen, I think it's hundreds of different things. I think one key contributor is children having access to content and technology before they are able to process and understand, and then they are not provided the opportunity to ask questions or have it be explained. So
mhm.
it's very stressful. And then we know that access to some of the media and content they have access to, besides some of the dangers through the private chats, which is a whole other conversation.
Right? Yeah.
Um, the dopamine hits that I know I get from swiping, of course they are, and they don't know what to do with it and they don't know how to moderate it. And so we are putting our children in this constant triggered, repeated triggered space. And then also, like what we said at the very beginning of the conversation, we just don't get together the way we used to.
Hmm.
And our kids don't just go run outside and play until sundown and come back for dinner unsupervised. They're constantly simultaneously supervised and unsupervised. The unsupervised with the devices, but supervised meaning they have lost a lot of agency, meaning they can't just run out and do whatever they want whenever they want, uh, for good reason. And I'm not arguing that we should go back to the way things were. Things have evolved and we are where we are.
Yeah.
But what that does is that prevents them from creating a sense of autonomy, from individuating, meaning having trust and confidence in their own decision making abilities and making lots of mistakes, uh, that they have to get themselves out of those mistakes.
Yeah.
And so they're not as resilient. And so when you are in a triggered environment and you're not resilient, you are more vulnerable. And I don't mean in the Brene Brown vulnerable way where you're sharing your emotions, meaning you are confronted with input that you don't know how to process and you don't know who to help, who can help you process. So then you're just in this constant panicked state.
Yeah. I think
So
I
that's
think
my assessment.
yeah. I think I agree with that totally. I think the broader brushstroke that I'll say is I think parents have stopped becoming teachers to their kids. I
Yes, I
think
had this conversation this morning with a friend who
I
just
think
decided to homeschool her son for that
yeah.
reason.
And I don't necessarily mean like and I don't just mean teaching them math or teaching them practical things, just teaching them
But that's
everything.
why she
Teaching
pulled him
them,
out.
yeah,
Life, teaching them life.
life, whether it's how
Yep,
things work, boundaries, how to do something for yourself, get the satisfaction of doing things for yourself, feeling
yep,
self-confident for doing things for yourself.
yep,
So I think
yep.
I think it comes down to it's a lot easier to give a tablet to your kid and let them entertain themselves than to spend the time doing something that's going to stimulate them or get them to do something. Or for example, let's just say you're doing a task in the house. And don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of this, but I make a concerted effort to try to be better about this. Say you're cleaning the kitchen as a parent, rather than, letting them do something, whether it's them glued to the TV or tablet, say, hey, you need to come help me clean the kitchen. Let me show you where this stuff goes. And it might be a pain now because it's going to take you twice as long to clean that kitchen. But one, it's an experience that you guys have together. And two, you're teaching them a valuable skill that's going to give them satisfaction. Hey, I helped do something valuable today
Yes,
for the family.
100%. And I think we, as a current generation of young parents, whatever your Gen X, millennial, whatever you are, whoever is a parent of young children, the time we are living in right now, we are all guilty of doing both.
Yeah.
I'll just do it. It's faster because we're in a mode of just got to move on to the next thing. So that doesn't help them.
Mm-hmm.
And also thinking that you're giving them freedom to play, escape, whatever it might be, when in fact, they do need that. But I hate to use the word chore because it makes it sound so negative and laborious, but like what we would label chores in the house.
But again,
Are
I don't think
those
there's anything wrong.
chores?
I don't think there's anything wrong
They're
with
not
calling it.
chores.
Yeah. And I don't
But they're
think there's,
not. They're not chores. They're
but
part of what you need to do to live. They
exactly.
just
But even if it is
life.
something that's laborious and a chore, you can call it a chore. And if you find it laborious, get them used to doing something that they don't want to do. You know what I mean?
Correct. So that it's not negative.
Right.
It's the way, Montessori's do this
Or
really well.
listen.
Everything's called work, right? So
Yeah,
even
but
play is work.
I don't know.
What?
I don't think there's anything wrong with not liking to do something and having to suck it up and do it. You know what I mean? And teaching that to kids and not making everything seem like it's all hunky dory.
It doesn't all have to be hunky dory, but what a gift if from childhood,
True.
because this is what you were ingrained with, you never thought of it as a chore. It's
Right.
just, I don't know. That's what I'm supposed. It's just, it's not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. It's
Like
just, I actually enjoy doing it.
it's
I
like that
like making my
happiest
bed and brushing my teeth and whatever, because that means I'm off to a really positive start to my day.
the
Like,
happiest
but that's a
person on
cheat
earth,
tool.
the happiest person on earth who pisses everybody else because they're so damn happy. I had a guy who I
Yeah.
used to work with at the donut shop back in the day, Grant. He's like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Pierre, how you doing?" And like he was like
Yeah.
the happiest person. I'm like, "Shut up, dude. I'm still half asleep." But
I know.
but yeah,
But it's
I
true,
would love to be
like the
that
way,
person.
but that is what you get to, that is what I think I wish I would have known earlier in my parenting, that the footprint or the blueprint that you are instilling on your children on those really early malleable years into like second or third grade can deter. And again, nothing's forever. You regenerate your whole body. What is your skin like every 18? I don't even know the data, but you know what I mean? Like everything's always being renewed and refreshed. We're in a cycle of growth. So nothing is permanent. I don't believe anything is permanent. Everything is always can evolve and can grow. But if you can create that footprint for your children, just like you're teaching your kids French, right? Like they'll never even, just like we learn French, I don't even think about it. It's just so deeply ingrained in my psyche. Like if doing the chores are just part of
Fun or life,
isn't
yeah,
that great?
yeah,
I mean,
totally.
and
I agree.
and so
I
I
think
have to, I have to do it.
I think so. I think you're right. I think from me personally, I can attest. I can attest to that and agree in that sense that I think a lot of the reasons why becoming adulting became such a big chore for me and becoming self-sufficient, independent was obviously I had three older sisters doing everything for me, and I didn't really, and I wasn't given that sense of chores or responsibility that I.
Yep.
And so if it's not instilled from an early age and makes you think this is part of life and it's no big deal, then it becomes no big deal to handle certain things. And so, and I think again, you can go to two extremes, but I definitely think
Of
somewhere in
course.
the happy medium is a good thing to do. Like, being able to
Yes.
be self-sufficient as soon as possible is the best thing you can do as a parent to help teach your kid.
Yes.
And then I have some I have some piano students whose lives revolve around success and working and nonstopism,
No,
and
no,
that's
no.
like one extreme where the kids are doing, you know, five different activities and they're like stressed out and about to have like a nervous breakdown and they're like in eighth grade or, like that's like another extreme too. So I think like that balance is really important to have. But I think, being able to do something for yourself, have the satisfaction and the confidence of doing it and not seeing it as a chore.
Yeah,
So so
I know,
I
but
definitely think
yeah.
that what you said is something I could have benefited from when I was younger for sure.
Yeah, I mean, all of us. Again, listen, I try not to look in the rear view mirror too much. I used to do that a lot. That's actually where I started. That's what therapy does, right? That's when you go to therapy, you, especially if you do something like EMDR, you look at the past and you try to rewire it, the memory and whatever. But I found that it was not helpful. Mm, sorry, that's not true. It was very helpful. It was incredibly emotionally unsettling
Mm,
unnecessarily
right.
because the past is the past. And to come back to what we started with around being in the present and being in nature and being here, it's like you can, you, we're not talking about sitting on a mountaintop permanently in the present where you are not planning for growth and development. So you have to have a, a sight line toward the future, or you will be in present survival mode, which I don't believe is a good place either, right? So, which goes back to what I was saying about you have to know what you want and you want to have a plan towards it. But then when you make the plan, you are here doing this today now. But anytime you spend looking at the past, it it generally doesn't serve you unless it's to reminisce on fun times, look at pictures, and
Or learn from mistakes.
or
Yeah.
learn from, yes, or learn from mistakes, but to go
Yeah.
back and
Torture yourself over
hold
things. Yeah,
or
I think
hold
you're right.
grudges or
Right.
anger
Or
towards
resentment
others or resentment
towards others or even
help you.
yourself. Yeah, you're right.
I, there's no purpose. There's
So,
no growth from that.
So I've had
Done.
two, based on our conversation, there's two thoughts that I've wanted to come back that come back to the same
Okay.
band that I want to quote is Tool. Okay. One in this,
Okay.
they have a song called The Grudge and
Okay.
and the lyrics are amazing. And it goes back to what you're just saying, holding these grudges, whether it's towards yourself, past, or other people. But the lyrics are wear the grudge like a crown of negativity, calculate what you will and will not tolerate, unable to forgive your Scarlet Letterman.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and then it's and then the other one was when we were talking about media earlier and how people thrive on the negativity of media. And there's a song they have called Vicarious, and the hook is vicariously I live while the whole world dies, and it's him watching the TV and watching how tragedy thrills him, and it's a satire
It's
on it
the
obviously, but
Matrix.
it's yeah
It's the Matrix.
um
It's like
yeah
red pill
but
or blue pill,
exactly.
I mean, this is, listen, I wish I had figured out so much of this stuff years ago. I think I'd be at a very different place in my life. But I also believe everything happens for a reason. I really do. I have completely, fully adopted, and I'm going to use these words synonymously. We've talked about this: God, the universe, higher power, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe in greater energetic forces, and that we have a soul footprint that was blown into us, into our bodies, and our bodies are the gift that we get to walk this soul around, you know, and when you get to that point, and the way I was able to get to that point is I stopped thinking about life in terms of coincidences or Murphy's Law or luck. And when I looked at events in my life and I thought about them more as what Jung would call synchronicities, meaning, uh, is it, can you hypothesize that it is more than a coincidence? And if you can, then why not? It doesn't harm you. It kind of opens a portal to other things, to being able to see other things. And then it takes off a burden of why you're here and what you want as well, and it allows you to focus more of your desires less on the material and more on the spiritual, meaning um it helps you frame your day in terms of service, meaning how can I, rather than like how can I work hard today, how can I be a good person today?
Yeah.
How can I go into this world and treat other people kindly today?
Yeah.
And when you start doing that, which it's recent in the last year and a half,
Yeah.
last year really, magic magic happens. Everyone's nicer to you, opportunities come your way.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to explain to you why. I'm sure a physicist could, because I do believe it's energetic, I really do believe, but
Well, or a psychologist could. It's just if you treat somebody
yeah,
kindly and give them your true, genuine self versus, hey, I'm here. We're having this exchange for this purpose, and this is, a
yeah,
means to an end for this transaction, whether it's, taking care of your kid, whether it's like getting your kid ready for school, doing it quickly and versus relishing in the moment of helping them get ready, like
exactly,
and making it an experience. I think people pick
exactly.
up on that. There's unspoken
Yes,
energy that people pick up when you're
yes,
trying to hurry and rush versus trying to be when you're calm
yes,
and present. That calmness
yes,
is something that people gravitate towards. Or, same with
exactly.
me and my students as well, when I'm teaching them. If
Yes.
I can still teach in the exact same manner and get the job done and get them to learn the things that they have to learn. But if I'm very present and
Hmm.
completely there with them, and I'm trying and making it coming at them as a point of kindness or from a perspective of kindness, then I think there's some sort of like positive energy that comes out of there that
There
wouldn't
is. It's
otherwise.
like a
Yeah.
1 + 1 = 3. Like you get more from it.
Yeah.
You create something. You
Right.
really do. So I don't know. That's what I'm defining as God. That energy field, experiential, woo woo, good vibes, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And ever since I've defined it as that, because again, a lot of all of this is what do you believe, right? Like, what do you believe it to be? Ever since I've allowed myself to believe it to be that, my life has been pretty good. And anytime I deviate from that, I don't say bad stuff happens, but because that sounds really like ominous, but it's like things don't go as well, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah. But speaking of kids, I have to go in a few minutes here to go
That's all
get them
right.
to
No, we've
school.
been time flew by. We've been chatting for a couple hours now. Some
I know,
more.
I don't even know how long because I've the thing maximized. So what time
Yeah.
did we start? We've been a couple hours.
Like, yeah, a
Yeah.
couple hours. We're coming up on 2 hours now. So it's probably, yeah, we can
This is like you're gonna have
call
to
it a day.
divide this into 2 chapters.
No, it's just one long video. It's all good. It's perfect. Dude, I watched Joe Rogan and Post Malone talk about just bullshit for 4 hours. They had a 4 hour podcast and they talked
Oh
about
wow.
everything. They just talked about fun. They just literally shot the shit for 4 hours, and it was part of it was on the drive to Colorado, and I just
Oh really?
literally I was driving anyway, so like
Yeah, listen to
watch
it.
the whole
Yeah.
thing, and so yeah,
Yeah.
people want to watch it. I
Yeah.
watched the whole thing, so and I finished it
Yeah.
later, but yeah. All right,
Good.
well, I
That's
love you.
awesome.
Thanks,
I love
Mimi.
you too.
Good chatting.
Bye.
Bye.
Good chat too. Bye. Love you
See
too.
ya.
Bye.